Well, hello, dads, and welcome again to the Dad Nation podcast. Happy to be here with you. Co-host Matt is not in the studio this month. The guy's got to work, so he's a busy guy, but we're missing him. But I'm going to introduce a very special guest that I've got with me in the studio. If you're a first-time listener, just welcome. This is just a way for our ministry, Dad Camp. You can find more about Dad Camp at dadcamp.org. This is our way of just encouraging you on a monthly basis in your journey of being the best dad that you can be. But Dad Camp is on mission to build stronger fathers who build stronger families. We got a dream to see a world where every single family has a great dad, and our primary way of doing it is just by creating what we believe are epic experiences for dads to have alongside of their kids. And this episode, we are in the heart of our USA season, and we're just getting started with that and excited about it. But if you have not been or haven't registered yet, go check out our events page, and we want to see you there. We've got elementary, middle school, dad camps. I think the high schools will be done by this point when you hear this episode. But go check those out, and they are absolutely powerful experiences for you to put an annual deposit into your life as a dad and to do it alongside of your sons and daughters. So check it out at dadcamp.org. But excited for me. This is honestly, God opened a door for my wife and I to go into ministry in 2003. Dad Camp started inside of that, or about 3 years later. But there are always people in your life that have significant influence over just who you're becoming and where you're going, that guide you, that you really believe have your best interests at heart and want to see you thrive in all that God has created you to do and be. And I have the privilege of having my cousin, Dr. Dave Currie, here in the studio this month. And Dave has been really a part of my life since a young boy. I'm sure he's got some memories he could share to embarrass me. But Dave, as I grew up as a young Christian, his ministry and the places and spaces that God had taken him, I found myself in many of those as a young student, going to ministry conferences, youth conferences with my friends, and Dave would be the speaker. Dave would be the director of that event, and it was always super fun to be able to go and be able to tell my friends, "That's my cousin on stage," and they're, of course, yeah, whatever, Braun, and but after a while, they'd believe me when I'd go up on the stage or go give him a hug afterwards, or Dave would take me to the VIP dinners or lunches after, and they'd say, "Hey, see you guys. You can go have your cafeteria food. I'm going in the VIP room with my cousin Dave." And so yeah, that huge amounts of influence that he's had on my life, but in thousands of young adults, students in Canada. So in those seasons, and then his ministry turned from young adult to pastoring, to starting a ministry called Doing Family Right, which we will talk about throughout this episode, and we want to connect you to. It's an incredible resource for parents and for marriages and for families and all that. And that all started after he had done some time with Family Life. I'm sure you've heard of that if you're familiar with the Family Life ministry here in the U.S. There's a division of that in Family Life Canada that Dave was directing, and there's just a ton there. He's now has a counseling business as well, and just deals with crises with marriage and sex addiction and anything family, parent related. He's an incredibly gifted human being and an incredible source of wisdom for me. And I'm just going to go on and on and on here. But Dave, before I'm going to let you talk, but yeah. But I would also say that when Bridget and I first took the jump to ministry, we tried to seek out as much advice and counsel and wisdom because it felt like a really ridiculously maybe unwise move to some, and we didn't understand it, and we had no experience in the direction we sensed God leading us. And Dave and Donalyn were two people that that we met with to sit down with and to really help us navigate that decision. And so, he's got a saying, put God first, life goes best. And that conversation back then was just one of those, like, all right, are you putting God first? I think we're doing the best we can. We're not, then just submit to wherever you feel like he's going. And I think it's going to be okay, regardless of the decision you make. Just put God first and surrender and let him lead you. And so we thought and felt like that's where God was leading us. And wow, what an adventure we've been on ever since. So I've been praying and just thinking of, man, it'd be so cool someday to have Dave and Donalyn come be a part of Dad Camp. And they're busy people. Their schedule is full like ours at Dad Camp. And so it finally worked out to be a part of the Dad Camp high school season, and he was able to be our keynote for Dad Camp High School this year, and just such an awesome opportunity to just finally get to serve together. So. And now we're going to do some podcasts together here. So because I'm like, man, we got to take advantage of his time here. But welcome.
Yeah. Jason, it's a thrill to be here and to see Dad Camp up close and personal. I become not only a believer but an advocate of what I've seen, and just thrilled for how God is using this ministry to bring the hearts of dads and the hearts of kids together. It's just fabulous.
So tell us, most of you know, listening to me, if you've listened to the podcast before, that originally I grew up in Canada, and so that's where Dave and Donalyn are to this day. They live in Abbotsford, British Columbia. That would be near Vancouver. I'm sure that's a familiar name to most of you, but tell us about your family. Tell us about
Sure.
your ministry, what's going on these days, and give us some Canadian facts.
Sure. Well, first of all, delightfully married to Donalyn for 50 years and 1 month now.
50 years.
Yeah. So just thrilled with what we have. Got her fooled. She still loves me, and but we really have a wonderful run going, and I love her to pieces. And we have 4 married children and 13 grandchildren. And if you see any of the pictures of that in my office or on my computer or phone or whatever, that makes me a millionaire, not what's in the bank. It's just that I have these amazing relationships with my kids and grandkids. So we just, for our anniversary, we celebrated a week on an Alaska cruise, all 23 of us. And
amazing.
It was just epic. It was just so fun and so enriching. And I just was so blessed by that. So that's the backstory on our family, on our ministry. We started the ministry in 2010, and so we're now in our 15th year. And the ministry started as a traveling and speaking ministry, much like Family Life does with regard to weekends to remember. We did one-day marriage events called Fusion and or iParent seminars, and so it was a speaking ministry. First, my wife and I, then other couples joined us to speak and travel with us, and then it has developed into not just a preventative ministry through seminars, but also a remedial ministry where through counseling practice, we now have 2 locations in the Fraser Valley where we have 21 counselors now that I have the privilege of overseeing and mentoring, and we help people in everything related to life, marriage, and family.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tell us something that you love about Canada.
Hockey.
Hockey.
Yeah, hockey. It is really in the lifeblood of the country. I don't know that, especially in the prairies, less so on the coast where there's other athletic distractions. But on the prairies, when it's cold, if you're not out playing hockey, there's something wrong. And I grew up in the middle of the Canadian prairies where it would be minus 35 and the likes. And I remember playing hockey really young, and then going on to play college hockey, and I still play hockey 3 times a week right now, and I just love the game. I love the fitness it brings. Love the joy of just playing with others, and having a successful run, making a good pass, and all that.
Appreciate that, listeners. Dave's almost 70. Still plays hockey for 90 minutes or so, 3 days a week. And if you have any idea the grind that it is to get on ice and go for it, that's incredible. That's a favorite hockey team.
Well, I mean, Vancouver Canucks, because we've been out there for 33 years. But as a kid growing up,
still waiting for a cup.
Still waiting, yeah. Closer this year, but still waiting. Yeah.
If you don't know hockey, this is kind of like you Cubs fans out there that waited a long time to get your World Series a few years ago, but the Canucks fans are still waiting.
Yeah. From 1980 to present, so we've been waiting for a while.
Yep. And they had a chance this past season, but going forward. So let's just finish one more hockey story, because one of the most famous, if being a part of Canada, there was a series. It was 1972, correct?
That's right.
And you have a friend that is really Canada famous when it comes to the game of hockey, and having a moment that was beyond hockey.
Totally.
Tell us about that.
Well, in 1972, there was the first ever Summit Series, where the best players in Canada were going to play the best players in Russia, and the then 2 hockey giants.
Yes.
And but at that time, there was a real war between 2 sociological worldviews, political worldviews, democracy and communism, and it was a real defining point as these 2 countries were going to clash. And they were going to play 4 games in Canada and 4 games in Russia in a friendly series, just going to play 4-on-4. Well, at one point there was a tie game, so it now became best of 7. They left it as a tie, so now whoever wins 4 actually is going to win
it.
This series. And sadly, when we went over to Russia, we were down 3-1. We'd played 4 in Canada and lost 3 out of 4. And so Canada had to win seriously. And over there was 1 tie. So now it's going to be best of 7. And so Canada had to win the last 3 games. And
on foreign soil.
On foreign soil, where they were doing things like, oh, your food got misplaced.
Yes.
Oh, you got a phone call at 2 a.m. to wake your sleep up.
Yes.
And, oh, I'm sorry, the dressing room isn't open for you yet. You can't get in yet. And all kinds of just crazy things to unsettle the players, and unfair officiating and all kinds of things. But in games 6, 7, and 8, one Canadian hockey player who had become the toast of Canada, his name is Paul Henderson. Paul Henderson scored the game-winning goals of Game 6, Game 7, and Game 8. And, it was only 2 minutes and 37 seconds left till the game was over in the final game. And Canada scored to win, with Henderson scoring the goal. And it was dubbed the goal of the century. And he was awarded the Order of Canada for not just that, but his lifetime of teaching men about how to be good leaders. And Paul's a dear friend. We talk every week, and he's 12 years older than me, but just a fabulous man of God, and a wonderful legacy moment in Canada.
How did you meet him?
Well, interesting. While I was a pastor of a large church in Abbotsford, I took over 40 kids on a mission trip with Campus Crusade for Christ, the Jesus Film Project, and they asked if I would be one of the speakers, because there was going to be another 20 other people going. And so I was speaking every day to this group of about 70. And Paul also had come along, been asked to come and be a speaker. And so that was when we really got closer. Initially, back in 1984, Paul had only been a Christian about 3 years, and Paul came out to be one of our guest speakers at Youthquake, the big youth event in Canada that I led for 10 years.
Yes.
And so that's where I first got to know Paul.
That was what year?
That was 84.
Darn it, I just missed it.
Yeah, that's right. And then 94, that's when we were in Brazil together. So that's when it deepened, and we've been in touch ever since.
So sports fans, regardless of whether they like hockey or not, look up the Summit Series.
Yeah.
I mean, because it took on a very, very political tone to it. This is kind of like similar, Rocky IV, when like Rocky's going against Ivan Drago or whatever, that was the big American Russian, it's kind of like there was more than just boxing going on there. It was, that was this in real life. The Miracle on Ice is another example of, America's, achievement of a true underdog over a giant. I mean, that was a massive amount. That was a whole nother different type of game, a different type of moment, but just huge moments on the world stage through the world of sports. But, but Paul Henderson, Canadian hero. So really cool. Well, there are so many things that we could talk about with Dave. I mean, and so, this morning before we got on, started recording this, we were like, what are some thoughts, ideas that we both had as to what could maybe add value to you guys that are listening the most? And again, we could have ran a laundry list of things down, but we have to stick to a couple. And so this might turn into a multiple episode podcast or recording, which is totally fine. So, and by the way, I'm repping my Dad Camp Canada shirt here this morning. We got the Dad Camp Canada flag in behind. If you're watching, we got Serbia on the wall, our two most recent plants, but in honor of Dave being here and Dad Camp Canada starting in June. Gotta rep the Canada gear, and I'm obviously a proud Canadian myself. So, but one of the things that Dave can talk about with expertise and with knowledge and with background and with experience that I think many of us can't. Many of us feel ill-equipped to talk about, feel uncomfortable talking about, is the area of pornography.
Sure.
And one of the things he said, he's been on many other podcasts, and one of the most frequently requested topics for him is, what do you do when you catch your kids on porn, watching porn? How do you navigate that? And I said, hey, we've never gone there.
Sure.
And so we're going to go there.
Good.
And so we want to kind of dedicate these next few minutes to that topic, because whether we're willing to admit it or not, or talk about it with our families or not, this is happening in everybody's world. And so why don't you just set that up and let's run with that.
Sure. So first of all, one of the things you need to keep in mind, sociological research of the family would maintain that the average age that little boys are running into porn is between 9 and 9.5 years. Okay?
9 and 9.5.
Yeah. So imagine
average.
A 9.5-year-old boy between grade 3 and 4. He will have been accessing it somehow through an iPad, a notebook, a computer, a phone. And curious and whatever, and sometimes it comes looking for kids, like porn just all of a sudden is a pop-up, and sometimes it comes looking for kids, but sometimes kids are curious and they type in the word sex. In all the worldwide search engines like Google, the number one word on search is sex.
Sure.
And number 3 or 4, depending on the source you go to, is porn, PORN. And then there's other words like nude and stuff that fall in the top 10 or 20, because that curiosity, without the right coaching, the curiosity starts to grow, and they hear friends talking about it, and so they are alone at one point, and they do some looking, and so that's how it gets started, right?
So I'm guessing that if the guys listening right now, you and myself, thinking like 9.5, that means I need to start maybe talking about this before that. I wasn't thinking about having the sex talk maybe until a little later than 9 years old, but this is a whole new reality.
And it's a whole new world with the explosion of the internet and the accessibility to so much, right? For years, one of the two most requested talks on parenting that I get asked to do is technological warfare, preparing your kids for online battle, and the other one is how to do a good sex talk. And if you mix those two together, how to talk to your kids and prepare them for online sexual confrontation that's going to be happening, right? And so that becomes the driving force for why this is often one of the most requested things. And I guess that parents do themselves a pretty serious disservice by assuming it won't happen to their kids.
Yeah.
For years, I did the coaching on parenting on the sex talk, that you need to have a sex talk by age 11. And the reason I said age 11, because that's grade 5, and then I in Canada, that's when they did their biological sex talk in class, like in the health class, they would talk about sex then. And I wanted parents to talk to their kids about sex before someone else did, so they would have your values attached to it. They would have your feelings and your perspectives, and then others could add to that, and often would add things that maybe you didn't want them to hear, but at least they knew the truth and could start to discern between what mom and dad said. In this case, dad talking to boys, mom talking to moms, to kids rather, daughters. And this is where I've now, because of this change in the accessibility of porn and kids getting onto it at 9.5, this is now, I moved the sex talk from 11 down to 9. Now, you might not include everything that you will at 11, but you need to include enough so that they are forewarned. You want them to be aware. You want them to, matter of fact, I have an article called Naked Pictures, and that article on our website is actually talking to parents of how to talk to a 5, 6, 7-year-old about what they might run into online. They'll all of a sudden have a naked picture pop up, and what should they do? And actually having that talk with kids, not to encourage them to look for it, but not to be surprised that all of a sudden, they're watching some video, and next thing you know, there's a pop-up, and they click on it, and there's naked people doing something, and that's going to happen. We don't control everything, and so this is a really important place to start. And I think another thing for dads to keep in mind, and many of the dads listening who've battled with porn will be able to agree to this, but currently, I'm likely working with between 100 and 150 men in our groups and in our counseling center that have battled with porn or even beyond, got sexually addicted and acting outside the marriage and things. Almost all of them got hooked on porn between 10 and 13. So they're these early, or either preteen or early teen years where this is where the addiction gets deep, because their brain is still developing, but this material is so sensational, and they start adding to it the explosiveness of ejaculation by masturbating to the pornography, and that PMO cycle, porn, masturbation, orgasm cycle, becomes an unbelievably powerful addictive force on the young mind, the young brain, and the young physiology. They've never experienced this explosion of all the dopamine and the enkephalins and endorphins that go flying through their brain in the pleasure center, and it is just, I got to do that again because it's so pleasureful, right? And that's how God created it, because He desires to drive us back to our spouse repeatedly. And me, for 50 years, I'm still interested in being sexual with Donna Lynn 50 years later. So this is a beautiful gift God gives us, but everything that God gives us that is good, the enemy tries to pervert. He tries to make it messed up in one way or another. And so this addiction to porn that gets started early is one of those distractions.
So you said, earlier, there's a tendency sometimes for, I don't know why that tendency is, but I think it's really true that we as parents think it's, well, it's not going to happen to my kid. It's not going to happen to my kid. I think that's probably a good just default pattern on us. So we just say we're not going to talk about it. But I think if we're being honest, which is always, we say one of our core values at Dad Camp, just be honest with yourself.
Yes.
I think there's a 0% chance that any human being in this day and age will not be exposed to porn on some level. Sure. So the facts are, it is going to happen.
Yes.
Now the level, the severity, that I'm sure will change or be different depending on the boundaries, the guardrails, the self-control, all that we all individually put into our lives or put into our families' lives. But you mentioned average 9.5 years old, first exposure. Even younger than that, kids today are on devices, 3, 4, 5 years old.
Yep.
That are punching on their YouTube kid channels or whatever. What is some things, what would you say? Like, we're living in an electronic world. We're living in device world. But is it even appropriate? Should we be handing a device knowing that these kinds of dangers are out there to a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old? What kind of guardrails, boundaries, what kinds of things do you tell the parents? Say, hey, watch this or do this or.
So I'm going to answer your question. Also going to defer more discussion on that. But first of all, there needs to be both limitation and supervision. Limitation means there needs to be software on all your devices to protect and prevent them from getting to garbage sites that pop up or whatever. So that's the limitation. There's some software to do that. Mm-hmm. Supervision, if you're going to give a kid your phone or anything, you can't be leaving the room. You can't be not knowing what's going on, right? And so that's really dangerous. And so the sad thing is that we've had through our ministry there, our counseling center, in the last 4.5, 5 years, we've had 2 people come forward. They've had kids as young as 7 and 7.5 getting up in the night and watching porn because they found it, they know where their devices are, they're curious, and they're actually starting to make a bit of a habit of it. And so repeatedly, I would say at least every 4 to 6 weeks, a parent is coming forward to our organization and saying, hey, I just found out that my 11-year-old, my 14-year-old is looking at porn. What do I do? And I think that's the place we have to start because that's the question that it comes to us repeatedly. Oh, Currie, I thought we did a good job, but I have to just tell you that I found my 14-year-old, my 13-year-old, they're looking at porn. Or we look in the search history and go, holy, where did this come from? Look at all this stuff. And I don't know, I didn't do it. Well, I mean, if the husband's being honest, and he isn't, because sometimes they are, but if mom and dad know it's not them, and they know that during this time, the only one home was the little guy, that this 11-year-old is actually looking at porn. He may be in denial because he has by inference the fact that it's likely not good. Mm-hmm. He has by inference. They may not have had good talks yet. In some cases, their friends have told them, it's really cool, you should watch this. So sometimes if there hasn't been coaching, they don't even know right from wrong. They're just knowing this is pretty exciting, right? And especially as they start maturing and go to puberty and they start adding the masturbation, it goes from exciting to captivating to completely addicting. And so that's really dangerous. So when a parent comes to me and says, Currie, what do? I just found out my 12-year-old's looking at porn. My first thing is don't panic and don't overreact.
Okay.
So that's number one. But number two, when you go back to talk to your son or daughter, because sometimes little girls are looking at porn too. But you start with this. I'm really sorry. This is my fault. I haven't coached you well. I'm really sorry I didn't protect the device as well. It needs to start with an apology from the parent that they didn't do a good enough job to protect. And it'd be different if it's a 16, 17-year-old and they're bypassing your software and they're stealing your phone and, going some kind of virtual,
Yep.
It'd be different if there's clear manipulation. But when a little kid is got access to porn on devices that are in the control of the parents, the first step needs to be, I'm really sorry. I really have let you down. This is not your fault. This is Dad's fault. This is my fault. I didn't coach you well.
I can, as you're sharing, I can recall a moment with one of my kids where they had made a mistake. It was not in this area, but in a completely different area. But I remember just being so devastated that they were going through this.
Yeah.
It was a choice they made, but I felt the weight of just. I didn't want one of my kids to have to go through that.
Yes. And
I remember, going up to their bedroom and just the first thing I did is I did that, and I just wept with them and just said, I'm sorry. Like, I feel like as a dad, I let you down. Yeah. And, but, while that just opened the doors for communication too.
Yeah.
And just for healing and it really strengthened that relationship. Not overreacting, like you said, over emoting, not freaking out,
right.
but just caring and apologizing and trying to own my part, just being so sorry that they were going through that pain because of that step, that choice that they had made, but feeling the weight as a dad and as a mom, of that responsibility. So that just, when you said that, it took me to a moment where, and that really helped that relationship be through that, to work through that and work through that healing, but it brought security and more trust to the relationship as well. Sure. So in future struggles and trials that we're all going to continue to have, it allowed for continued influence.
Sure.
So
and there are dads listening that are saying, well, it could never happen to me. Not with my family, and that sort of thing. And I want to step into that because my youngest daughter was likely 13 or 14, and she was invited to one of her friends' birthday parties, which was a sleepover with about 8 or 10 junior high girls. And a family from our church. I was a pastor then, and it was a family from our church, which we knew, and had their kid back and forth many times. And so we felt safe. And there was obviously a season in that overnight that they were not supervised. And they got onto one of these dating sites. Now, they can't go on there until they're 19 or 18 at least. But they were pretending they were of age, and they were creating profiles, just having fun in their mind, creating profiles that they would have these pictures as if they're 18. Well, they weren't 18, but they were trying to look like they were 18 and whatever. And they made up stories about who they were and everything. Well, at the end of what was thought to be just a fun, innocent event, the girl whose birthday it was, for whatever reason, decided that she was going to prank my daughter. And she went back in later and put my daughter's real phone number in there. Now, here's my 14-year-old with pictures of herself on a dating website that goes live with her phone number. And I remember the phone call that came to our house. This is Dr. Dave Currie now, marriage and family expert. And at the age that your kids are in those early teen years, every male in their life. Their youth pastor's voice. The voice of their soccer coach. The voice of their gym teacher who coaches them in basketball in the spring and this fall. And every male voice. This is Uncle. That's Uncle Rick's voice. You know what I mean? Every voice in your kid's life. And when this call came to our house, I thank God that I was the one who took that call. And there was a voice I didn't recognize asking for my daughter. She was 14. And I said, who is this? I said, well, I just want to talk to Kelly. He said, yeah, well, I'm her dad. I want to know who this is. Well, and he backed off, and then pretty soon, click. And it had gone from an innocent sleepover to fooling around where they likely shouldn't in a very risky way, to a friend thought she'd prank my daughter and put the actual phone number of her house. And I just thank God that I was the one who took that call. And so to say that it could never happen to me, I would like to be one of the most confident ones to say that.
Right.
And yet it did happen.
It
did happen. And so I just want you
just through like a fairly innocent
totally
kind of thing.
Totally.
But the most
and this
unintentional.
Yeah, this wasn't porn. This was just dangerous real life connection.
Right.
To possible somebody. Right. And of course, my daughter was totally unaware. But this is where to think that these kind of things will never happen to you would be really foolish. At one point, one of my youngest son, he had had a sleepover with a friend at our house, and we noticed in the next day or two, we noticed on the search history that there was some porn lookup stuff on our home computer. I called Mitch in. I say, hey, Mitch, just want to talk to you about this. What's up? And he says, well, you know who was over, right? And I said, well, yeah. He says, well, Dad, he's got a real big problem with porn. I says, oh, so it wasn't you? He said, no. He says, Dad, if I wanted to look at porn, I wouldn't do it here because I know you'd find it. He says, I would just watch it at school on all the school computers. The guys are watching porn all the time at our school, but they have a second screen open, so if a teacher comes by, they click on the other screen and it pops up their homework or whatever. But he says, Dad, I would never watch home here because you'd catch me and you'd kill me. Right? And so, but the idea that to say that would never happen to us.
Yep.
Porn was coming into our home, and
it's happening.
Yeah, and so men who are listening, and just keep in mind, it does affect the young girls too, because what happens is they get 11, 12, 13, 14, and they're starting to get interested in boys. They find out that boys are finding out about sex through pornography. So girls start looking at pornography, and they start to get curious, and we're finding as much as a third of young girls are looking at porn now. Because it starts with that curiosity, whether the boy's looking at, or I want to learn how to do sex, whatever, what's cool or whatever. And this terrible direction.
And true that they're seeing that a boy is attracted to that, to images, to all that. And so a way for me to maybe be noticed by a boy that I might like would be to perhaps send them a picture of myself, or send an image, or... because they're caught up in that identity and that desire to be loved and be known. Yeah. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, totally. And I think what happens is the greater the security, especially with the father, the greater the security the young girl has that Dad loves me, he cares for me, the less likely they're going to look for love in all the wrong places.
Say it again.
Okay? Dad, you need to know that your daughter needs to be secure in your love, that they feel safe with you, esteemed by you, that you are her hero and she is your princess, and that she is safe with you and valued by you and loved by you. And then she will not be looking for love in all the wrong places. She won't, because of an insecurity of wondering whether her dad loves her, she won't be looking for some guys at school to love her. And I mean, I deal with a lot of sad things where kids do share pictures back and forth. Sexting, right, where you send sexual images. I've been involved in at least 3 situations where the police were involved because understand, and the laws in the U.S. are the same as Canada, as best I understand. But if a young boy presses a young girl to say, send me a picture of yourself naked. Yeah, I mean, you're so cool, you're so beautiful, I'd just like to see you. And she succumbs, and so she sends a picture. Well, first of all, that young boy is soliciting child porn because she is underage. She's 14, he's 14. So he has solicited child porn. Now that's on his phone, he has possession of child porn. If he sends it to a friend at a whim, he is now distributing child porn. Right? And so what happens is he's done in Canada 3 felonies, and he's 14. And so I've been involved in families where their girl was, caught with the sexting thing. And when I mean caught, the police got involved in grabbing the boy, but now it's this man's daughter, but they hadn't had talks like this because they didn't think it was going to happen, right? And so it's really important if you find that your son or daughter is looking at porn, it starts from a position of chill, don't react. Number 1. Number 2, apologize. Say, hey, look, this is on me. I didn't do a good enough job of sharing with you. And go into some explanation that sex is a beautiful gift from God that the enemy tries to pervert. He tries to distract us from. And pornography is a distraction from healthy sexual intimacy in a marriage as God intended. Sex is good. Don't tell your kids that sex is wrong. Because that's what I was told in a very, very hyper conservative church, that sex is bad and sex is don't whatever. And I go, if it's so bad, how come I'm so interested in that cheerleader? She looks hot. Like I'm thinking as a teenage guy, if it's so bad, why am I kind of so curious and so interested? And I see shapes and everything that are distracted. Then you discover the puberty thing and masturbation and all, and you go, boy, why do they keep saying it's so bad? It feels So now it's a real confusing message. But when a kid admits, especially if it's an early teen, that they run into porn or they get caught, really important that you get the help that they need and help them get to a safe place and good place. Because when it comes up and it isn't dealt with well, they will never bring it up again. It'll never. They don't come. Because when a man, this is even when a late teen or a person in their 20s or 30s come forward and says, hey, I need some help with this. If they don't get the help, they'll never bring it up again. Because it's a really hard thing to bring up.
Yep.
That right. And so I think the dads listening need to say, maybe I need to deal with my porn stuff.
Yep.
So if there's any dads that are struggling here, I mean, frankly, you can go to the Doing Family Right website, and we have likely 300 documents or videos or whatever, all on recovery. There's a lot of other great resources out there to help men. But there's 3 articles in particular on our website that I'll refer to.
Okay.
That will help men who want to go deeper here. Plus, well, first of all, one's called Indecent Exposure, which is what happens when a kid runs into porn and what we should do. It's kind of this particular talk. One is called Naked Pictures, how to talk to your 5, 6, 7-year-olds about naked pictures when they pop up. And one is called Pornified. And it's the top 10 things you need to tell your teenager about pornography and what it does to you.
Okay.
And so those would be ideal. Those would be ideal.
So those are on your website.
Yeah.
If we can make it happen, can we put those in the show notes, like for this, as a link?
Yeah, no problem.
But if we can't, I'm not saying we can yet, but if we are, they're on the website.
Yeah,
doingfamilyright.com.
Yeah.
Those are incredible research. I've read a few of those guys just in advance. Dave just sent a couple of those to me this morning, and I've got one looking at it right now while we're talking, and they're super helpful and really well done. So take advantage of that. And so, all right. So summing this up. What I heard was, first, if you find that they're already engaging in it, don't overreact, apologize, work through it, get some coaching in some of these articles and things, and on how to navigate that going forward. But also have these discussions, even if before you're aware of it or not aware of it, still have these conversations.
Right.
And when they're super young, what are some, like, man, if I could take a couple of steps today and my kids are super young, to protect my home, to protect my household?
Sure. So first of all, you do need to have protection software on all the devices.
Anyone you recommend? Or, I mean, I'm sure there's quite a few out there, but
there's a lot of good ones. I lean towards Covenant Eyes.
Covenant Eyes, okay.
Yeah, covenanteyes.com. And you can buy a subscription monthly that allows you to put it on any device in the house. So like even the computer that's right in my briefcase right beside me here, it has Covenant Eyes on it for 2 reasons. One, because I don't have a particular draw towards porn personally, but I know that I have grandkids. And sometimes my computer is left open at my house.
Sure.
It's open, and they know it's not a play toy, so they shouldn't be on it, but kids will be kids.
Yep.
But they can't accidentally get to porn on my site. It will not happen, because my device is protected. And the other thing, too, is men who say, I don't want to put that on my device because it slows things down. Well, I'm a flippant speed freak. I like things happening fast. And having Covenant Eyes does not slow my computer down at all.
Yeah, that's a false narrative
that's
right
lame.
there.
Exactly,
Yep.
yeah. So get protection software on your devices. Do some research. If in the meantime, grab Covenant Eyes and get it on, and then start looking around for something you might feel better. What it does, it not only protects or prevents a person from getting to a questionable site, but it also reports that they tried.
Yep.
So it's both accountability by reporting to you, and it's also protection. It prevents you from getting. So you can't get there, but you also know where they're going.
Yep. I know a friend that had a battle here, and so I was getting weekly emails when I was his accountability partner at one point, and it would just say, so and so has not visited any questionable sites this week. So and so has, and then boom, I'm like on the phone, or I could text them like, hey, I just got the alert. What's going on?
Exactly.
And I know that might sound a little bit extreme, guys, but is it extreme? To protect yourself, protect your family, protect your marriage. That's not extreme. That's called wise.
It's called wisdom. Yeah, it's called. And you know what? You got to fight for your own freedom, man.
Yep.
You can't take the kids places where you haven't been.
Yep.
You can't.
And the reality is, like, statistically, I know you probably know this way more than me, but I mean, what percentages of guys in the 25 to 40 age group that are known to, like, least view porn once a month. It's like high, right?
Yeah. So you're likely in a general population, you're likely in the 85% range, and over 57% of women in that bracket are still looking at porn at some point.
So almost every guy.
Yeah, many. And so yeah, but you see, there's
maybe not an addicted, but still pursuing
looking at it, monthly is still an addiction.
Yeah,
and I would say that it's important to realize that Christian men, the number isn't maybe 85, but it's likely 65. It's not quite as high, but it's an unusual high rate. And we're not judging any man listening.
No.
We're hurting. We're hurting with you. Because the truth is, every man that struggles with porn, that has any kind of faith relationship, knows in his heart, I got to beat this. I got to quit doing this. Because it just demoralizes their spirit. It just makes them carry such shame and such guilt and such embarrassment. And that's why if they do reach out for help once and don't get it, they will never come for help again. Because it's shrouded in shame and failure, and listen, I work with men who are struggling with porn and acting out like sexual addiction, virtually every week, and I love these guys. I will battle for them and battle with them. And men listening, you can get freedom, and that freedom for you is going to be the foundation upon which you can coach your kids better.
Amen. I mean, this is as recent in Dave's life as. Yesterday he and I and our wives took a day, and we were driving home, and he got a phone call, from his daughter who is in ministry herself with her husband, and they're counseling a couple that's about to get married that just found out that the fiance, the male, was struggling with some porn exposure and addiction. And so they were calling him yesterday to be like, how do we navigate this best? Because, of course, we want them to see redemption and reconciliation, restoration. We want to see them, get married and have a wonderful marriage. And so, yeah, I didn't bring that up earlier this isn't like to make you feel bad. This is, I want to be like, make you feel like, hey, like we're all, if you're a guy, this is a battle. Like
sure.
There was a book years ago, Every Man's Battle. Like this isn't something you're on an island and you're dealing with on your own. We all fight the battle, and so we all fight. We need to fight it together. We need to fight it diligently. We need to talk about it. It's this isn't just your problem.
Yeah,
this is a way that the evil one comes at us, and now I've seen, and what I see is this isn't just a guy thing, like you said.
Yeah, I want to step in and offer hope, because I think the well-meaning book Every Man's Battle leaves the idea out there that there's no choice, that there's no men that are ever going to stay clean, that every man is going to be hooked on porn to some degree. And that's just not the case.
Correct.
There are men who stay clean, men who were tempted and said, "No, I'm not going to go there." And I don't want the women listening, if there ever any doing that, to think that every man's going to be in this ditch. But many men are, but they dealt with it in an 18-month period, and it's been behind them for years. That's good, but there's many.
While it's a battle,
that's right.
You win the battle. There's not every guy loses the battle.
That's right.
But it's a battle, but we win the battle.
That's correct.
Yeah,
that's correct. I like that, and by you winning the battle, you set the table for you to help your kids.
Let's not deny that the battle is there.
Right.
But we can win the battle.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Man, this is good. Thank you for this. We like Matt and I, when we're together, we always like to end with just like, hey, is there any final 10%? Any last thing that, I should have said this, or that we didn't get around to this, but I wish I would have. I know there's so much to this topic, but any final 10% as we kind of finish this conversation?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing is any man listening that is struggling will never get freedom without a surrendered life to Jesus. Won't happen. So put life first. Put God first in your sexual struggles, and life will go better when you do. And asking God for wisdom when you run into kids who've been looking at porn, and that you would respond not out of embarrassment, frustration, or anger because they're looking at it, but you will operate compassionately, taking responsibility for maybe part of the job you didn't do, and that you would just continue to trust God through it all. He is the real counselor.
So if that is a decision you've never made as a listener today, to really take that first step to say, I'm giving my life to Christ, and you want some help with that, you want someone to talk to, just reach out through our website, through our contact page. We've got several of our staff, our guys would love to encourage you and to lead you along in that way and to help you take that next step, because we truly do believe, if you put God first in all aspects of your life, that life really does go best. And there's victory in what God has done for you. And so you are not defined by these things, these struggles, these battles. It's all been defeated. Yes. But it's defeated through Jesus. So please, we would love to encourage you if that's a decision you haven't made, that you're like, you know what? It's time. It's time to make that decision. So, thanks. This was this is territory that we've rarely explored in 18 years of Dad Camp. We've talked about it at events for sure. We've had some sessions, but not in a conversation to really get after that. So check out doingfamilyright.com, guys. There are a wealth of resources there. If you just need some help, seek out some professional, counseling in your area. I know, because our listeners are listening from all over the country, even the world now, and so seek that out. There are good people in your area to help you. In my area, the Kokomo, Indiana area, this isn't specifically about sex addiction or porn addiction or anything like that, but there's a ministry called Celebrate Recovery. It's a great first step for hurts and hang-ups and habits and things. And inside of that, if there's some deeper stuff, there's a great, they'll connect you to the right people. That'd be another option or resource for you. So thanks for listening to another edition of the Dad Nation podcast. As you know, if you could just pray for the ministry in a couple of different ways. We are in the heart of our Dad Camp season, where we're doing anywhere from 2 to 4 to 5 Dad Camp events every single weekend. And so it's what we do. It's what God's called us to. But our team, it can get exhausting and it can be tiring. But at the same time, every time you're there and you see God show up the way He does, it's so life-giving. But we need an army of prayer warriors that are lifting us up in this season, and not only just our USA team. Even early as this, as recent, I guess, as this morning, I'm getting messages from Kenya again from some events there, and so we're just overwhelmed again by all that God's doing through this ministry all over the world. But it cannot thrive. It cannot. This is a battle, and so we got to get our dads back. And so just be praying for those things specifically, and we would really appreciate it. And then if you haven't registered yet, there are still openings at many events. They're close to full, but they're not all the way full. So go to our events page, and if you just knowing that, if you're already registered, that means there are spaces for your friends still. Go get your friends. It's dads who get dads to Dad Camp, and so you get a dad, you get a family. So thankful for listening, and as we always say, you have what it takes. Yes. So go do whatever it takes to be the strongest dad that you can be. And so Dave and I got more to talk about, but we're gonna wrap this session up, and we're gonna go into another one. So over the next couple of months, you're gonna see Dave again on another topic, because there's other things that we're so look for that as you continue to listen and be a part of this community. So take care, guys, and we'll talk to you again in another month.